So next we're going to talk about controls. I'm going to do a little bit of review about what controls are. I know that if you've taken the first two classes in this series, you've already studied this. Some of you may not have that background. Some of you may be coming from slightly different places. So we'll talk about controls in general. We'll talk a little more about control selection and how that occurs and how that integrates with risk management strategies. So let's go ahead and dive in. We're going to start with just the background required for the case that's coming up later today. And the background is again, just some analysis of controls. Few businesses have what I would call a static risk profile. Most businesses are constantly changing and evolving. What was true for them a month ago isn't true today. That's driven by a lot of different things. The businesses themselves change. The risk profile may change as new vulnerabilities crop up on the internet, as new attackers make themselves known. There's a lot of talk today about advanced persistent threat and possibly nation-state actors. 20 years ago when I started in this field, nation-state actors in information and cybersecurity didn't exist. Nobody would have considered that. So over time, the environment changes and the company changes as well. As that happens, you need to re-examine what you've done to protect the company. You need to re-examine how you are keeping track of confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the information that you're in charge of. So we'll talk a little bit about what that means for us here. So new economic realities. Over the last several years, we've seen banking issues that have caused all kinds of new economic realities for all of us. As that's happened, I have gotten extremely busy dealing with banks and financial institutions who are being attacked by people who aren't happy with their behavior. It's a direct consequence of those economic realities. My personal economy has been thriving because I'm busy. Attackers are hurting and trying to hurt financial institutions as of today. That probably will fade over time and a new economic reality will take its place. Mergers and acquisition strategies. These are actually somewhat related. As economic conditions change, it may become advantageous for companies to merge or acquire other companies. As certain competitors falter, it may be a good strategy to buy that competitor to become a larger, more stable entity. Each time that occurs, and that'll be the focus actually of the case that we're going to be talking about later today. Each time that occurs, you're combining two completely different entities with completely different attitudes and strategies towards information security and risk into one. And if you think it's difficult to strategize for a single company, strategizing for two and how to combine the two is quite a different story altogether. And we're going to be talking about what that means. Changes at the top. Management changes often are quite status changing for information security. You may see, for example, somebody who has essentially disregard for the potential challenges in front of them, including confidentiality of customer information, for example, take the place of somebody who's been very careful. And this is an interesting thing to happen to an information security professional in that it's not our place to make those level of risk decisions. That's the place of that CEO, that top level management who get to, because of their position, make strategic decisions about risk. It's our place to make sure they understand the implications of those decisions. It's our place to explain risk to them in a way that they truly understand and can make appropriate decisions. So you may be in a situation at some point where a new manager comes in and says, I'm going to take all kinds of interesting information security risks. I'm listening to you and I hear what you're saying about it, but I really don't care. You have two choices, really. One, you say yes, sir, and madam, and move on with making sure they truly understand what you've said, or leave. Getting in the way, obstructing the company, obstructing the decisions of the decision makers is never an option, and unfortunately one that's adopted by a number of my colleagues. So I'd like to see all of you avoid that. Acknowledge that top-level management, which I'm hoping each of you will become a part of. Top-level management gets to make risk decisions. The only place where you'll fail is if the risk decisions they're making aren't properly informed. In other words, they don't understand the implications of the risk that they're taking, and you've not been able to get that through to them. You're going to hear this from me over and over again because it's central and key to doing this job properly. Laws and regulations can change. Right now in the United States, critical infrastructure has just been addressed by the President as one of the most important things we're doing in cybersecurity risk, or not doing. There's a new executive order that tells the Department of Homeland Security to identify what is critical infrastructure, and the expectation is that once those things are identified, new regulatory environments will ensue. If you have any inclination that what you're doing in the United States right now has to do with critical infrastructure, your lives will be changed regulatory-wise through that executive order within the next 18 months. So new laws and regulations happening worldwide consistently, and I'd like to make a plea. I'm going to divert from my normal lecture in this area for just a moment. I'd like to make a plea that right now, the people making those laws, the people enacting regulation and law, do not have people like you informing them. The laws that we see as information assurance professionals have very little basis in reality. They are based on uninformed lawmakers diving into areas that they don't comprehend even slightly. You, students, have the ability to correct this. Each of you that have gone through this course, each of you that have gone through the previous courses has knowledge that these lawmakers desperately need. If you have the opportunity, if you have that inclination, I would encourage each of you to consider participating in the lawmaking process. I would like you to think about diving in and making that process better, because the laws that and the regulations that I'm working with right now, frankly, don't make a lot of sense in terms of actual security. So I'll get back to our normally recorded lecture and go on, but each of you that are looking at this, each of you that are going through these topics has a chance to make a change. I do what I can in that area, and I'd encourage you to think about it as well. And just anything. Any change potentially could impact the way that we do information security. It'll change the risk profile of the organization. It'll change then how we accomplish things. So let's talk about acquisition. Companies are acquired all the time. Entities that you would never have thought would have been open to acquisition, if enough money is available, can be acquired by another company. And when that happens, it changes almost everything and almost overnight. The regulatory environment may change for you. The jurisdiction. If in fact you're a U.S. company that's acquired by a company from another nation, it could be that some of that other nation's laws now apply to your employees. If information is being shared across that boundary, it could be that European Union privacy law now applies to information that HR in the United States is handling. That can be interesting and tricky. By the way, as a part of being an information security professional, you're going to get to know lawyers very, very well. They are the people who can help us actually understand some of these jurisdictional issues, regulatory issues, and so on. Some of my closest friends are lawyers. The audit environment may change. When I talk about audit, really there's a few different kinds of audit. There's audit that's required by regulation. There are audits that happen because you're legally bound to audit certain things that you do. Not everybody has that. There's audit that happens because you just want to know how your organization is doing. You want to know, are we doing the things we say we're doing, and are we doing it in the way we say we do it? And something that's becoming more popular and I deal with constantly right now is audit that happens because your business partner, this other entity that you're going to share information with, is interested in how you're going to treat their information. Many financial institutions that I deal with this on a constant basis. Some of my clients are audited by the largest banks in the world on a constant basis, and those banks are their clients. So we're going to actually have a specific case around audit, and I don't want to dwell on it too much, but it's a huge portion of what can change in an acquisition. Obviously, the laws that you're subject to can change. Again, we've talked about jurisdiction. The country may change. At times, there could be 100% management turnover. I spent a little bit of time on the last slide talking about changes in upper management. The level of drastic change that occurs when essentially an acquired target loses its autonomy and top management is now the acquiring company is drastic. It's usually not overnight, and it's almost never announced that way. It's usually announced as, we love you guys, we're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing them, don't worry, don't go looking for other jobs. And then, over the next 6 months, other things happen. So reporting structures, personnel oversight, the trust relationships you have, often, this is certainly true for me as a consultant, but usually true within any large organization as well, the relationships you have with other people are how you get work done. The trust that you've built up with the people that you work with and the way that they understand how you work, to a great degree, actually determines your success. If you're not trusted within the organization, you can't do anything. In an acquisition, it's all new. There's 1,000 new people you need to get to know, and they may or may not have any level of trust over this third party that they just acquired for their assets. So that all changes overnight. From your perspective, it really looks like it was overnight, often. Ordinarily, these negotiations are secret. And even in public companies where certain kinds of reporting are required by law, they happen at the last possible moment so as to not give competitive advantage to other people who want to know about pending acquisitions. If you're not at the highest level of management, you may not hear about it until it's time to meet with the new HR department. And I'm just going to go through a few things that'll go through your mind at that point, and we'll get to what your reaction should be. Yes, you should have been given months of warning. It's a difficult thing you have to do now, and they should have given you lots of time. No, you're not always given that, and you need to get over it. This is the way it works. You need to be prepared for this kind of activity. That's one of the reasons we're going through the exercise today, is to help you think about these things in advance so that when it happens, you've given it some consideration. You're not just reacting cold. And just to emphasize that, really, get over it. Some of the worst behavior I ever see in an acquired company is not getting over this problem. The feeling of betrayal that the company sold out from under me, and now I've got this thing that doesn't work for me, and it's everything's new, and I don't like change, and all of these things combine to produce a kind of a toxic work environment. And from my perspective, one that doesn't work as we try to do some of the most difficult things you'll ever do in information assurance. Combine two organizations. Understand the controls and the control changes required for that combination. So, what are the implications of the sudden regulatory change? based on acquisition rather than legislative action, all right? These are the kinds of questions you need to think about, and we'll have some time with that in just a moment. So this is not the case. This is just a little mini case where we're going to walk through some of the things that I'm going to ask you to do over the next week. Your headquarters just moved to El Serrat, Andorra. If you don't know where that is, look it up. It's a cool country, very, very small. Exactly what are the privacy laws in Andorra? Do they change? Are they different from yours? Well, hold it. I live in America. Can't I just ignore their laws? This is a typical American arrogance. I'm not suggesting it's accurate. The truth is we need to talk to people that know for sure before we can make these kinds of decisions. So let's not get into wholly owned subsidiaries or any other legal differentiators or just how these companies are combined. Let's just assume there's some level of combination, and we're going to talk about what that really is. This is not a class on business law, although I dive down that path occasionally just a little bit. Your lawyers will be the one that explain to you what regs you're responsible for. In my experience, it's a good idea to have a decent understanding of the law, because not every lawyer that knows how to write a contract knows regulatory compliance issues and information security. And our lawyer says, in this case, we are an American subsidiary. We don't have to follow the Andorran regs and laws, at least for information that originates here. Does that mean Andorran employees can ignore American law? This kind of goes both ways.